Was the managing editor when I was there, and as far as I know, was truly one of the pioneer women in journalism at the top levels of any paper. And she had a great influence in the Washington Star in the style section, and then she came to LA and revamped the style section of the Herald Examiner, and then soon became managing editor and then editor. And so we're delighted that she's here as well, and she was able to bring Jim with her. Thank you, Marianne. I'm going to chat a little bit with my panelists here, and then we're going to start asking some of you to tell some of your stories. I hope I have a list of some names of some people who volunteered already. I hope the rest of you maybe will come up with something. I think in terms of a minute, 2 or 3 to talk, because I want to get as many people in as possible. But let me first by asking each of my panelists to remind us when they worked at the Herald, what they did there, and I want them to tell us if they think the Herald did have a influence on an ongoing basis and what that influence might be. And ladies first, Linda? We'll start with Linda Breakstone.
Hi. Does this work?
Yeah.
Yep.
I started there in '78. It was my first newspaper job, and it was fabulous. And right after I was there, the morning city editor quit or something. And so they asked me to do it for a week. So I'm in this room with Jim Bellows, and he's mumbling at you and doing this with his hands, right? And I'm like, I'm you! And I said, what in the hell did you say? And they told me, and so then I got to know it, and it was genius, just like you've all said. It was just incredible. I tell that story all the time, how Jim would go, and then you'd have to know what his hands say. Because you see, I talk with my hands too. I got into his way. But no, he was just fabulous. Your question was, you asked me on the phone, did the Herald have any impact? And I think it really, really did. In that I went to TV right after the Herald, a month later, and the TV stations now, it's a whole different issue, but back then, they really didn't do that much reporting, and I remember,
politics.
well, just on anything.
Okay.
I mean, they would just, and so I just knew how to report, but I did not know how to do TV at all. One woman told me, gosh, you had, what did she say? Because she had started at some small place, and she said, and then she went to LA, she said, I got to start at a small place and make all my mistakes there. You started at a big place, and so everybody can see your mistakes. But that was, I wanted to leave after the first year, I really did. But the important thing for the Herald is, when the Herald closed and the reporters went out, and I went to KABC first, and all of a sudden I broke a few stories, and all of a sudden, the entire newsroom, the other reporters wanted to break stories. It became this little, we want to break stories station. And the news director loved it because everybody was actually working and doing stories. And I see that, and then I remember TV for a while there. I remember Harvey Levin, and everybody was really on it. And there really was a difference. I mean, there really was. People would come up to me, and I looked terrible on TV, as you guys all saw. But they'd come up to me, I didn't know what to do and stuff. And they'd always be so appreciative of new information. And I was always trashing TV reporters. I said, you guys have to ask questions. You've got to do the story. You can't just go show a picture and just say whatever the wire says. You've got to, and it really did have an impact. I'm sad to say that this year it's all changed back again. But I really saw the Herald had a huge impact. I really did. I mean, again, to Jim Bellows, I was thinking about it after you asked me that question. I've always been so proud, and people say, well, it was good for you that the Herald folded because you went to TV. And I remember the first 4 or 5 years, I said, no, it's not. You know, reporting is what matters here, not the silly TV stuff. But the Herald really, it showed how to do it. It really did. You said the internet thing. That was a very good observation.
No, absolutely. I think it's true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Hey, Don, this is Don Frederick, who flew in from Washington yesterday. And Don, take that microphone. And the odd thing is, all of us worked at the Herald Examiner, but we didn't necessarily work there at the same time. So some of us knew people who were here really well, and for others, they're complete strangers. So Don's time and my time didn't overlap, so I welcome hearing a little more about when you were there. Remind us what years you were there and how it's influenced your career.
Well, we overlapped actually about a year. I got there when Ron Kay walked out the door. And,
Out
the door, but
You were my boss, and you were my boss.
my college chum David Israel called me up. I was living a pretty bucolic, pretty easy life in Santa Fe, New Mexico, covering state government. And Israel called up and said, Frederick, there's an opening on the city desk. Why don't you apply? So I did, and Mary Ann, who had taken Jim's place, was kind enough to hire me. I almost didn't last more than 2 weeks. I was talking with Mark Gears, who was on the city desk. Today we were reminiscing. It was the middle of the afternoon. I had been there 2 weeks. First time I had been on the city desk. I'd been a reporter before. And the phone rang, and only Mark and I were there. Larry Burrow, Barbara, the other editors were in confabbing with Mary Ann and John Lindsay. They were figuring out what to do the next day paper. I didn't know much about being a city editor, but I knew you were supposed to answer the phone. So I answered the phone, and this obviously drunk person on the other end says, "This is Bill Hurst. I'm calling from San Simeon." Turn to page 4. Do you see that ad for Bug Bomb? I swear this is absolutely true. You can check with Mark Gears. And sure enough, on page 4, there was like a 2x2 ad, not very big, but of course every ad counted for the Herald Examiner. And it was blurry. And the reproduction was not very good. And so this fellow on the other phone is railing on about how the hell did that ad get so blurry? And I said, "Thank you, sir, we'll look into it." And I hung up on him. And I turned to Mark and I said, "Some drunk dude just called. This bitch said he was Bill Hurst calling from San Simeon complaining about the ad." And Mark got this stricken look on his face. And he said, "In fact, that was Bill Hurst. He often does that." And about 30 seconds later, the phone rang again. I let Mark answer it. And he handled it very well. "Yes, sir. No, that's a new person on the desk, sir. He didn't exactly know how to work the phones. We're sorry he hung up on you." And so Mark saved my ass. I count myself lucky that while I was at the Herald, which was 6.5 years, I came there in the summer of '83 and was there till it ended on November 1st, 1989. That at some point fairly quickly on, I realized this is the best goddamn time I'm going to have as a newspaper man. And it was.
When was that?
Working with Linda, working with Mary Ann, working with John Lindsay. There are some people, of course, that we've all remembered. The fabulous Dave Barton on the copy desk, one of the great headline writers. My memories of Dave are not for the headlines, the fabulous headlines that got in the paper. Speaking of great headlines, I was talking with somebody at the Times yesterday when I got in the evening. The first time I stepped foot into the LA Times was in the fall of 1983 when our part of town blacked out. And we couldn't put out the goddamn paper. And Mary Ann got in touch with the LA Times, and en masse, the city desk and the copy desk went to the LA Times. They were kind enough to help us put it out, and Mary Ann came up with the banner head, "LA's Heart of Darkness." And somewhere I have that paper. It was a great looking paper. A great looking paper. But Dave Barton, the two headlines that Dave Barton actually came up with that for some reason we didn't go with, I think it was at some point in '84, I'd been there about a year, and Dennis Wilson, the drummer for the Beach Boy, was liquored up, drugged up, fell off his boat in the marina and drowned, tragically. But Dave Barton came up with the headline, "Beached Boy." But we wouldn't go for it. But his best head, we didn't. We had some parameters of things. His best head, which I'm really surprised at this day that Lindsay didn't go with, I think he was writing the paper that day, was when Lucille Ball passed away and Dave came up with "Lucy in the Sky with Desi." And anyway, those are my remembrances, and I think the influence is obvious.
Next, I'm going to ask Ron Katie to remind us when he was there. And you've had an interesting career, Ron, and when you go on, and what I mean is you've gone on and done other jobs that are the kind of things where you really find out if that experience you had was valuable or not. When you're tested and other things, that's when you learn the things you've done in the past and how they interact. And so, remind us when you were there and tell us what the Herald is, how it's influenced your career, if you would.
Thanks, Alex. When you do when you create as much trouble as I created in my career, you also have the opportunity to work with a lot of people who know a lot of things and give you the opportunity to learn stuff that becomes part of the background repertoire of what you do and let you try to do it. I did